My father took his hat off, put it in the chair. My mother sat in the chair next to him. Dad went over to the children. Here's some money for you, and the money for you, and the money for you, and the money for you. Came back, sat down on his hat. My mother's looking at him. So my mother said, you just sat on your hat. My father said, I know it. That was it. Now, if I left an opening like that for my wife, first she would have done a half hour of eye rolls and arm waves. Time for him to leave. My father stood up, picked up his hat, did not fix it, put it on top of his head with the lumps and the dips all in it. My mother looked up at him, took his arm, they went out the door. My wife would have done another half hour. If you think I am going out the door with somebody with a hat on looking like that, you've lost your mind. I'm riding in the car with him. Father's driving, my mother's sitting on the passenger side. My father goes past the turn, 2 miles. My mother's sitting up front like this. I'm in the back like this. I said, Mom. She said, yes. I said, didn't Dad go past the turn? She said, yes. I said, well, why don't you say something to Dad? My mother said, your father knows what he's doing. My wife would have done a half hour on me. Would you please pull over so I can get a bus or a cab or something? I'd like to ride with somebody who knows where they're going. You know, this area has already been discovered. Wonderful. The arguments that I have with my wife, I'm able to pay her back now. There was a time she was way ahead of me. After the 3rd year, she would win every argument. Not that I was wrong, but she had this weapon she had developed. I'd make a statement, and I'd break out the Bible, Reader's Digest, and the encyclopedia, and I'd say, all 3 say exactly what I just said. And she'd say, and that sucking of the teeth, oh, it just tore me up. And then it just got inside of me, it just tore, and I had no answer for it. And then the 15th year I was married, the weapon came. And now it gets to her just like gets to me, goes inside. I've always looked for something to just burn her up, man. It's a wonderful weapon, and husbands get it, but it takes 15 years for them to develop it, I don't know why we take so long, but it's a fantastic weapon. My grandfather was the first one to have it. I didn't know he had it when I first saw it, because I was 6 years old. I was in their home, and we were playing a game downstairs, and my grandmother was upstairs. It was a 2-story house. And my grandmother said, Russell! 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 And my grandfather just... And I looked at him. I said, Granddad? He said, yeah. I said, Granddad, Grandmom just called you. He said, who? I said, Grandmom, she's upstairs and she called you. He said, when? I said, just now. He said, My grandmother came to the top of the steps. She still couldn't see him because we were in the back part of the living room. She said, Russell, will you come up here, please? My grandfather. I said, Granddad? He said, yeah. I said, she did it again. He said, who? I said, Grandmom just called you. He said, when? I said, oh, no. And my grandmother came downstairs. Veins were popping all over her neck. And there was a vein going down the center of her forehead. That thing was standing out about a foot. She said, you heard me call you, you know. And the halo came over my grandfather's head. He said, if I had heard you, my darling, my love, I would have come. I promise you. And I didn't know it was the weapon. And the next time I saw it, I was 15. My father had it then. My mother called my father. We were sitting in the living room, and I know my father was awake because I just finished saying something to him. And my mother called him, and he just sat there. Silence was in the living room. And she called again. And I said, Dad. He said, yeah. I said, oh, man. This disease is running through this family. I said, Mom called you. He said, my mother came in and she had, you got out when I called you. He said, I didn't hear you. You did hear me. I have the weapon now, boy. And I love it, man. I love it. Nothing gets to them worse than that, man. And they come in the room. My wife called me, man. I don't hear a thing, man. And they come, she comes in the room, and I love it, man. I didn't hear a thing you said. And I know it's tearing her out. It kills them because they know you heard them. But they can't prove it. Wonderful. It's a good life. Yes, my parents were lower economic people, sometimes on what we called relief, which is spelled welfare. 15th and the 30th of each month, the mailman was our best friend. And my mother said to me and my father said to me, we want you to do, we want you to do. They said that to me and I said yes, and I didn't. Because I was having fun. Just having fun. Because I had a feeling that no matter what, who needed it? It was going to be all right anyway. And it was falling, and every once in a while it was all right. And I didn't need much, man. I just need to get some sneakers, put tape around them. If they start wearing out, I'm still playing ball. I still have friends. We're still having a good time. Didn't drink, didn't smoke, wasn't partying, no drugs, just having fun, man, just out there. And the teacher said, all right, read this and do that. And I'd take the books home. I took them home. And I put them down, and I went out and played, and I was going to read the things, but then it was time for dinner. People said, eat the dinner. So I ate the dinner, and then it was time for the radio program. I listened to the radio, and then it's time to go to sleep. And so I quit high school at age 19. Another 2 years, I would have graduated. And I was out. I was happy. My mother wasn't happy. My father wasn't happy. But I was happy. And I was downtown looking for a job. I was scouting places that I wanted to work in. And they joined the Navy. And I looked. So I signed up. Came home, I told my mother I'd joined the Navy. She cried. Oh, where are you going? It's just a baby. He's going to bed. My father said, good move. Supposed to report down to the bus station. I did. I had no girlfriend. I wasn't unhappy.